Okay, so here we're going to talk about the types of unemployment. Okay, so I've got them here behind me just in case we want to make any notes on this, because I want to make sure you understand something about what is considered to be full employment. So we're going to break this down. We've got okay, so we have frictional unemployment. The lucky thing for us is that the names of these all sort of imply what's going on with them. So frictional unemployment is just considered to be the process of people being in between jobs. Jobs come and go. There's one thing you can guarantee in a top-down society, and that is that your employer basically has the right to ask you to leave and to cut off all of your income at any time they choose. So you're always going to find people in this position of being frictionally unemployed. Maybe some of them are people who are just simply withdrawing from one opportunity in order to go to another, or they might have resigned from their job in order to start a new business. I've recently been in that position myself. So at that time, in between those two things happening, you might be frictionally unemployed. So you picture friction arising from two things rubbing together. So, that's sort of people who are in between jobs, actively in between jobs. Now this one's structural. That's a little, it's a little harder to distinguish why it would be any different, but we kind of lump them together. Structural would be things like new technology coming in to supplant jobs. Your book gives the example of newspapers. So newspapers, right here in London, we used to have the London Free Press. I think it's still going as an organization, but they have a large building located at Colburn and York at the foot of Waterloo, which now is vacant. Well, it used to be a hub. It used to be where the paper was produced. You could go in, you could do a tour, you could watch them produce the paper, and you could go into one room and it was a big stable of reporters all going out to get the beat. Well, that doesn't seem to exist anymore. A lot of changes have taken place in the way we consume news. So newspapers and local newspapers are starting to fade away. And so a lot of those people who would have been in those positions, those jobs, actually no longer exist because of changes in the society and changes in technology and just changes in the way, our old buggy whip manufacturers are not employed making so many buggy whips anymore, or that it just things change in our society. It also says that structural unemployment could be regional, geographical. So I guess I don't know whether it would be frictional or structural, but when we started making a lot of free trade agreements and a lot of our manufacturing started to move out of our cities into other places in the world, suddenly workers were no longer located in the places where the jobs were taking place. So I suppose that could be considered structural. Your book gives the example that, if I want to go and move to Ottawa, there might be more reporters there, and so I might be able to get a job as a reporter if I'm displaced from the London Free Press, for example. So this can be geographical, technological, anything like that. And then this is just sort of the shifting of workers within the workforce, right? Then we have cyclical. And cyclical is a little bit, well, that's based on that business cycle that we talked about, the business cycle with its peaks and its valleys, how sometimes things are going really well and employers are running around looking for people to hire in these peaks, and in these valleys people are being displaced because economic activity is just slowing down. It's said that our Our economy has peaks and valleys, and we're going to study that in a little more detail as we go along. But as a result of this, it is members of the labor force that wind up being paying the price and being spit out. So in some cases, we're just spit out of the labor force by fluctuations in economic activity. So this cyclical unemployment. And then we have one that's quite a bit different, and that is seasonal. So there is seasonal unemployment, maybe for ski instructors at Blue Mountain during the summer. They may be unemployed. They may not, there are jobs that just don't exist in various seasons. I just went to visit a provincial park. All of the people who, check my parking and who are cleaning up the park and whatever, they're going to get the winter off because the park shuts down over the course of the winter. So that's just seasonal unemployment. Now, basically, when we look at unemployment, what the book tells you is that there's a concept which is called full employment. Full employment. And you might look back at your notes from the last segment that we did and say, oh, well, that would mean that everybody in the labor force, or maybe everybody in the working age population, is employed. But no, that's not what we consider to be full employment. If you look at a production possibility frontier, what we're usually using in terms of our labor resources falls short of this frontier. We're usually not using a lot of our labor resources, and there are reasons for that. So full employment is not equal to 100%. It's going to be something less than 100%. Your book admits that that economists don't agree on what the number would be considered that is full employment. So different people have different views on that, but they don't consider it to be 100%. Everybody who is in the labor force has a job. And the reasons for that, they consider, these to be basically the natural unemployment. There's natural unemployment, and some of it is invested in this cyclical, and this is considered to be the variable segment. So what they're saying basically is you're always going to have people in this category who are not satisfied with their job, and they're in between jobs, and they're going somewhere else, or their employer kicked them out the door for some arbitrary reason, and they're now looking for another position. You're always going to have these frictional people. And then you're always going to have these structural people because, we're always trying to innovate and find ways to eliminate work or find more efficient processes of doing things, shifting from using labor to maybe using machines, using technology. We're now talking about artificial intelligence supplanting a lot of work. So you're always going to have this structural unemployment, and then we're always going to have business cycles. The instability is baked right into our system. This instability that spits people out and puts them into the category of the unemployed who hang on as long as they can and may turn into casualties in the out of the labor force category. So we're always going to have those because we're supposed to accept that our economic system works in a series of peaks and valleys. My favorite economist likes to say, Dr. Richard Wolff likes to say that if you had a roommate as unstable as our economic system, you would move because of these peaks and valleys. We're going to get into that a little more in later chapters. But the thing is, so we like to say that there's a natural rate of unemployment which makes full employment impossible. So really, full employment would be 100% minus the natural unemployment, minus whatever you happen to categorize as natural unemployment. Again, that's going to be generally frictional, structural, and it'll bop back and forth depending on general economic conditions. You've seen before, you've got enough now to realize, your GDP is going to increase and decrease. You'll have times of economic growth and times of economic, what we call recession, right? Where lots of people are put out of work. You read about that in the news all the time. So that's by the nature of our system. So it's baked right in that we're going to have this natural rate of unemployment. So full employment in economic terms, one thing you need to remember is not 100%.